We got bad booking decisions from all over. We got callers in Staten Island, Nashville, Tennessee, California, Southern California, New York City, Idaho, Ohio, Syracuse, New York.
Dave Reed cities.
That's right. Shit-stained New Jersey. We got it all, Tommy.
All right. I gave a little teaser about how I would have ended up on the worst booking decision of all time. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And thank goodness for Terry Funk, the voice of reason. I've said I wanted to, when we had all this Todd Gordon being the mole and all these WCW people coming in, I wanted to legit get shot in the middle of the ring with a sniper. Somehow me and Paul are arguing about it. Paul's not letting me get shot, not because he cared about me, because he was worried about the bullet ricocheting through my body, but I'm hardcore. I would have come back in 3 weeks, maybe a month. And Terry Funk, the voice of reason, tells me it's a stupid idea. Paul's like, thank you. But he's like, because when my dad got shot, they came back with a Texas death match. And after that match, the house has died, because if a man shoots you, because Terry Funk's father, Dory, got shot on television, and when he came back to face the assailant in a Texas death match, and they went to a draw, when somebody tries to kill you or shoot you, and you don't kill them or shoot them back, then it'll kill your business. Think of pro wrestling. And honestly, like, you know, yesterday when we had Kerry Von Erich, when he was talking about his father, and Toto Raton talked about his father, it really said a lot. Like, I know my mindset, everything was for ECW. Again, a much different time, but it's a family business and you're fighting for your life, where it's just like, you know, he's like, I love my father. My brothers loved their dad. He's not going to be portrayed in this, but you're running a business and you're fighting for your life, as well as you're on top. And, you know, people don't understand. I've run a wrestling company, and how close you come to like national television, or how many, it's like all of a sudden, all these guns are pointed at you from other wrestling companies. When you're starting out, you have to deal with every little problem. And so I totally got it. And I understand what he was talking about with his family. But I mean, honestly, if I would have gotten shot for real, I think it would have been the worst booking decision of all time.
I have a feeling, Tommy, it would be on my top 10 list.
Yeah, I think so.
And if that happened, I don't know if we'd be talking right now. If that had happened.
No, dude, I'm hardcore. I could survive a bullet, no problem.
All right, so, you know, we have packed phones. We have a full bank of phone callers that want to do this. We will get to the nation, I promise. But, Tommy, why don't you kick us off and do your 10 through 6 top 10 worst booking decisions of all time?
Had a lot of fun doing this, by the way. But like I said, just when you all think you have all the answers, I changed the questions. I did this for booking decisions that had like really, really devastating effects, whether on the company, the character, or the trajectory of the future. So here we go. Number 10. Are you ready for this, David? This one's going to get you big. Hangman Bobby Jaggers dumping horse manure on Scott Casey for wrestling down in Texas. And why that was so big, because it aired on the USA Network. And why that was even bigger, because of it, they got kicked off. Southwest Championship Wrestling was on the USA Network. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, think of that. Because of this one booking incident, they get kicked off of the USA Network, allowing the WWE to slide in. And think of that decision. And we talk about trajectory. Southwest Championship Wrestling didn't go on much after that. And think of how the course of the business changed right then and there. Gave WWE national television.
It's unbelievable when you think about that. But yeah, that, you know, what we talk about with the NWA, with TBS, Tommy, it was USA. And that USA was kind of like the home for WWF. That door would never have been opened if it wasn't for that incident. That's a great number 10, Tommy.
Well, thank you. Number 9, If you remember the time, it was a golden era. We would wear sweatpants that had American flags on it, boat neck T-shirts. That's right. The Lex Express was rolling through every area to the big payoff of a count out. And then what do? They drop confetti. They have the wrestlers hit the ring. That this build and the Lex Express was built for a long, long time. We've learned why in Lex's own documentary on A&E, why all that stuff happened. But what a horrible payoff for a multi-month, almost a year build of the Lex Express. Starts with the body slam, rolling through town, and they're going to make this guy the guy to win by countout. Did it hurt Lex Luger? I felt it did, not career-wise, but if he wasn't as hot as he was when he was in WCW, NWA, WCW, coming to the WWE the way he did, Lex was the man. I'm such a big Lex Luger fan, and he doesn't get enough credit for how good he was in the ring when he finally got it. And man, that was a horrible booking decision.
I still don't understand why they did that. I thought it was ridiculous. I remember even laughing that they had confetti falling down and he didn't win the championship. Made absolutely no sense.
It got over the countout, brother. They were really building for that countout. Number 8, I was a part of it. The business crashes. How are we going to get it up? WCW takes over WWE on a Monday Night Raw. Was it Buff Bagwell versus Booker T? People crap all over it. Seattle, Washington. Who do we got to call? We got to save this dying angle. Let's call Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer. We debut. Changes the course. We get the fans. WCW joining with ECW. I was like, huh? What the hell? What do you mean? Call the hotline. This isn't going to be the best, but we're going to make it work. And then right off the bat, we get the people hooked. And then that first pay-per-view that they did with the Alliance and everybody in between, and then all the WWE people beat everyone part of the Alliance. The angle was a one and done, and you could have had so many amazing future matchups and built heat because the business is over, but they were treating it like the business was still, that they were still competition, and it really, really hurt the business because the next pay-per-view they did, the numbers were very, very much in decline, and it was a real lull part in the wrestling industry.
That's a great one too. I mean, so far, Tommy, all the moments you have, I do not have on my list. I feel like our list is going to be completely different.
Nice. Number 7, another one that I was there live for, and I saw people walking out the moment it happened when TNA did not put the title on Bobby Roode versus Kurt Angle in Philadelphia. They were so invested in one B Roode, and I felt there has been so many letdowns in that regime, and it was the last hope. The place was packed. It was the last hope that they were going to do the right thing, and then they did the wrong thing, and it was done. And all that bad ill will that TNA had put into, it was like the final straw, and people did not come back, and it was almost the, starting the demise. And then thankfully new management came on, and what we see where there's a lot of positive spin, but I want to say it's been 7 to 8 years of that stink that laid on of like, man, they just keep letting us down.
And Tommy, you have goodwill up to a point, right? And I think in Philadelphia, that's when the fans just gave up. And there's so many what ifs when it comes to Bobby Roode, Tommy. I look at Bobby Roode's career, and I don't know if we're ever going to see Bobby Roode back in a squared circle again. And he should be somebody that we talk a hell of a lot more about. And I think if that moment would have been different in Philadelphia, we would be talking about Bobby Roode more.
Well, I mean, Bobby had a great career in WWE. He got injured, and don't know if we'll ever see Bobby again, but I got heat with Bobby because of some personal reasons. So he's dead to me. So there you go.
Okay, we won't speak of him again.
Never mention the name Bobby Roode, Ravishing Rick's son. Anyway, That was one of my favorite Bobby. I don't have heat with Bobby. I love Bobby. One of my favorite, Virgil comes up to Bobby Roode and tell your dad I said hello. And Bobby was just
Oh
like,
my God. That's
okay.
amazing. That's it. That's it. We can end the show right now. That's it.
My number 6 for this and my last one for this segment. Toto Tom mentioned it, but there's a little bit more of a backstory. The AWA, not once, but twice in the same building, having Hulk Hogan win the title just to take it off of him on television. And I mean, you talk about excitement. You talk about, I mean, we are in the throes of Hulkamania. Hulkamania is alive and well. And we talk about Hulkamania, but we always refer to Hulkamania when he defeated the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden. No, Hulkamania existed before it. You had this meteor that's going to do this great business, and you screw your fan base over twice. Damn you, Stanley Blackburn, you son of a bitch. And you take the title off the hottest guy. After that, Hulkster, and yes, there was stuff behind the scenes with merchandise, but the Hulkster goes to the WWF, and the rest is history. You had that, and you didn't capitalize on it.
And I even remember, Tommy, the magazines, like in Pro
Holding
Wrestling
up that
Illustrated.
title. If you remember, Dave, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you remember him holding up that AWA title the same exact way he held up the WWF title.
Oh, God. You're
You
right.
had it. That's like, I mean, WCW, you didn't know you had Steve Austin. But you didn't have Stone Cold Steve Austin. You had Hulkamania. You had the ripping of the shirt. You had the Eye of the Tiger. You had everything, and you blow it. Think of that. Never the same.
It could have been higher on the list. Can make a case for it to be higher on the list. That
Can't believe it's number 10.
It's number 10. It just shows you how strong the other 9 are, Tommy, but it is my number 10. I still, to this day, don't understand it. There was absolutely no reason for Sting to lose that match. Absolutely no reason for the NWO to help Sting. And it was horrific that Triple H in a suit, like 35 minutes later, is in the middle of the ring with Stephanie McMahon. I'll never understand why they did it. It was a horrible booking decision, thus a top 10 worst booking decision in the history of pro wrestling. Let's go to my number 9. Fucking terrible booking decision in SummerSlam 2010. You spent all this time building up the Nexus. Remember that great Monday Night Raw segment where they attacked everybody in the ring? Right. You know, John Cena, Daniel Bryan choking out Justin, you know, the ring announcer, like all that, the Dapper Yapper, all of that. And then you have that big buildup to SummerSlam, and then Team WWE, led by John Cena, just decimates the Nexus and completely destroyed it. End of story, end of angle. You might as well just took out your wah-wah and pissed all over it. Goodbye, Nexus. One of the hottest angles that I had ever seen in the WWE ended the night of SummerSlam 2010. Thank you, John Cena.
So far, I agree 1,000%. And a lot of it, you know, like I said, also with the Alliance, I think it was more based upon, and not John Cena's ego, but just like behind the scenes, this is how it has to be done because we have to be the dominant brand. There was no competition during this time. You created your own competition with the Nexus, had everybody talking about it, and then, like you said, done so quickly. So could have been further.
My number 8, April 24th, 1983. Like you said, built St. Paul Civic Center, sold out. Like you said, here's the other thing, Tommy. This happened multiple times. This wasn't the first time that this has happened, but they built up to this show. And think about the date, April 24th, 1983, right? Because guess what? Just a few months later, he's in the WWF beating the Iron Sheik for the WWF Championship. Would things have changed if Hulk Hogan won the title that night? And it was, and you want to know something? Hulk Hogan didn't throw Nick Bockwinkel over the top rope. If you remember, Nick Bockwinkel had that sleeper hold on Hogan. He breaks it. Nick Bockwinkel falls over the top rope. He didn't throw him over the top rope. It was bullshit. You had a moment laid right in front of you. And you want to know something, Tommy? I don't think, even if Hogan didn't leave to go to the WWF, I don't know if the fans would have bought into another match between Hogan and Bockwinkel. Terrible booking decision, and it really kind of killed off the AWA.
You can't screw over your fan base, even back then.
Yeah.
You could do it once, then, like I said, with the Bobby Roode thing, if you constantly keep doing it, we're not going to show up. It's like, how many times is your, team, they get to the playoffs, they're not going to do it. They just, they crap the bed. You still want to root for them, but it's like, I'm not going to go pay to go see them anymore. And back then it was, all about butts and seats. And it was such a horrible decision because you had Hulkamania in its prime and they wanted it. I mean, and the buildup for your match that you were talking about, the match that he did before, they actually switched the title, but then on television, they had him come out, Stanley Blackman, and say, hey, it didn't happen, and Nick gave the title back to Nick Bockwinkel. So it's like, I went to an event, and now I got to watch on television. Another thing where I saw a lot of people, the Dusty Finish. The Dusty Finish is a great booking decision. It really worked. It worked in the territories, and it worked a couple of times, but once you saw it done all the time, that's when it became known as the Dusty Finish, because now the business is expanding. Territory-wise, like I said, they could switch stuff. Memphis Championship Wrestling was actually what you would see on television in some places booked a week later. So you would have to do things like, if you switched a title on television, the people in certain areas didn't see it. So that guy would walk out with the title and they would switch it again, or a DQ finish because it hasn't aired in that place. But you couldn't do such finishes over and over again once national television is out there, because like, wait, I've already seen this. So
yeah, it's a shame because the moment was right there, and if you screwed your audience over, and he did it multiple times, so I think they would have lost faith anyway. I don't know if they set up another match, Tommy, if fans would have bought in, if you would have had a sold-out crowd. I don't know. I really, really don't. All right, let's go ahead, Tommy.
I was just, and then again, talking with Greg and history, the reason why they said they did it, they had CBS going to be there, and they were going to build for the next match. They were finally going to do it. Hogan was going to win, and then on that same card, Andre was going to win a Battle Royal, and then they were going to do Hogan and Andre on a big primetime special. But there was behind the scenes that also screwed over, Hulkster leaving. But we almost had, Hogan versus Andre for the first time on national television in the AWA. But if you would have just switched that title, then Hulk would have, of course, stayed, and you would have done all that, like a lot of the stuff that would have happened history-wise, we would have seen already.
And Tommy, it's funny, if you go back and watch that match, it's almost like you're watching a match from the WWF.
Yep.
I mean, Hogan comes out with the Hulkamania T-shirt, rips it off, is coming out to Eye of the Tiger, which that's what Hogan's theme was for the first 12 months of his title reign with the WWF. Like everybody that thinks that this was all invented in the WWF by Vince McMahon, it wasn't. It was all from Vern Gagne's AWA. And I think that's forgotten in time, but it's a big what if. My number 7, Tommy, is David Arquette winning the world title. You sacrificed your world championship for promotion of a movie, Ready to Rumble, which was a commercial and critical failure. A horrific booking decision for WCW.
Bro, it got us on the cover of USA Today. I love you, Vince Russo.
It was a bad booking decision. The only reason why it's not higher on the list is I already think WCW was in their dying days at that point anyway. So I don't think it was as colossal, but man, it was bad. And at number 6, and Tommy, to this day, I don't understand why they didn't do it. It was a fantasy matchup. the cover of all the magazines. It was like, what if Hogan versus this man, Ric Flair, and you had it in your hands for WrestleMania 8 and they didn't pull the trigger. And what made it even more of a crime is they were having Hogan and Flair wrestle at house shows before WrestleMania 8 because McMahon wanted to get a gauge what the chemistry was like between Hogan and Flair. What are you doing? It didn't matter. Tommy, it wouldn't have mattered if the match was bad. It really wouldn't have. If you never have Hogan and Flair touch ever, and then you have that be your main event for WrestleMania 8, that would have been a match for the ages, and they completely dropped the ball. Especially a guy like Vince McMahon, who's all about pomp and circumstance over the meat and potatoes. I cannot believe we didn't get Flair and Hogan at WrestleMania 8.
If I go back to basically talking about ego, then if he puts him on the top the way he did, does that mean that like you're acknowledging that this guy was the greatest and, there was another wrestling company? Because, I mean, for the longest time, we didn't acknowledge it, even though he came out with that title.
But that's the thing. I would agree with you, but he came out with the title.
Dude, I remember it like it was yesterday. But is it more so your ego? The historically they say those houses weren't good, which I don't understand because whenever I hear Hulk Hogan was on the card, all the houses were sold out. So again, I wasn't there, don't know it, wasn't a part of it. But I wanted to always see Hulk Hogan, growing up for me, who's the next Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair, dream matchups. You have it, you dropped it.
And you could tell from the tremendous roar of the crowd, I think a lot of people are like, that WTF question mark. What the fuck? Triple H beating Booker T at WrestleMania 19, Tommy. The whole story was for Booker to win this match. I mean, there was some racial undertone. Like, it was really like Triple H was a bad guy. Like, I still don't understand, like, that was the finish, was Triple H beating Booker T at WrestleMania 19. I know that Booker T has gone on record to say that it didn't really bother him. Maybe it didn't bother Booker T, but I know it bothered a lot of fans.
Yes. Not always are happy moments in pro wrestling, but at least it worked out at the end for Booker.
Yeah, it did, but not in that moment. And again, that moment is WrestleMania. WrestleMania. Hello. All right, let's go to my number 4, and we've heard this one before. I was in the crowd, Tommy, for that moment. I remember doing the post show. We did it at a sports bar, Doug and I, in New Orleans. And we did the show for about 3 hours. And nobody, and I mean no one, talked about Bryan Danielson winning that championship in the main event. All anybody wanted to talk about was that Undertaker streak ending. And, of course, Brock Lesnar being the one to end that streak. Doesn't make any sense to me. Again, when you look at it now, almost 10 years later, it still was the wrong decision. If you wanted that streak to end, that streak should have ended with Roman Reigns beating The Undertaker. Because, again, especially with this bloodline story, imagine if Roman Reigns is talking about how he ended The Undertaker streak. Now, Sam Roberts joins us right in the middle of my list. And Sam is shaking his head. Sam, you got something to say?
Yeah, I was just thinking about if only the Roman Reigns looked dominant, this bloodline story would be working so well. You're right. Roman Reigns is really suffering from not having beaten anybody. If only he had beaten the streak. Can you imagine? If Roman Reigns had beaten the streak, it would have been even worse for him. Do you remember what happened to Roman Reigns when he beat The Undertaker?
Yeah, he got booed, which, by the way, isn't that what you want from Roman right now in 2023?
He's not beating him in 2023. He was beating him years ago.
Sam.
A supporter of ending the streak. Oh, my God.
Now, wait, hold on. I don't know that, Tommy. Now, on my top 10 worst booking decisions of all time, I have Brock beating The Undertaker at number 4. Tommy had it at number 1. Now, I want to hear your take, Sam, because I know you have your top 10 list. We'll get it in a couple minutes. Did you think that Brock should have ended the undefeated WrestleMania streak of The Undertaker?
I would not put it anywhere near my list of top 10 worst booking. I think that if you look at what that did for Brock, I think people forget what Brock was doing before he beat The Undertaker. And before Brock beat The Undertaker, Brock was losing matches. He was maybe 50-50. Brock lost to Cena. Brock lost to Hunter. Like, Brock was coming in and he would lose the match. When Brock went into WrestleMania 30, the assumption was that The Undertaker would win, not just because The Undertaker always wins, but because Brock's role was be a tough opponent who's going to lose in the big match. Between WrestleMania 30 with Brock beating The Undertaker and then SummerSlam with Brock destroying Cena, it completely changed the way Brock Lesnar was perceived and used, to the point where, to this day, that question comes up. There's never a Brock Lesnar match ever again where you go, well, I know Brock's going to lose. You can't say it anymore because of those two matches. And, you know, I would have been fine with The Undertaker. I don't think The Undertaker streak needed to end necessarily, but I don't know that it could have been used more valuably than putting it on Lesnar, who has since used that for a decade.
All right, Sam, because I got to finish my list and then I want to get to yours. And we're here with Sam Roberts. Thanks, Sam,
Thank you.
first of all, for joining us. If you had to pencil, would you have ended Undertaker's WrestleMania streak?
No, I can't imagine me ever making that decision. As a fan, as someone who loves The Undertaker, as someone who loved the streak, I can't imagine ever saying, now's the time, let's end it. But that said, in hindsight, I don't think Brock Lesnar beating the streak has been bad at all. And I don't think Roman would have benefited from it at all. I mean, I think people would have rebelled against it so hard if Roman had been the one, because people did not want Roman to be the one, that it wouldn't have been that thing.
Well, Tommy, we now know that Sam's not going to have that on his top 10 worst booking decisions of all time. But let me really quickly finish without the audio. So at number 3, I have the Finger Poke of Doom. And you think about that show with the Finger Poke of Doom, because you also had the infamous line from Tony Schiavone about Mick Foley. And that was just a colossal, horrific night for WCW. At number 2, we heard a lot of this from our callers, Tommy, the Christmas Day Massacre. Fritz von Erich faking the heart attack on Christmas night for
I totally
World
forgot
Champion.
It was on Christmas.
Yeah,
Merry
it
Christmas,
was on,
fans.
Merry Christmas. I just had a heart
We
attack.
have another tragedy on Christmas to really go for a heat.
And for those who don't remember, it was, do you remember the match that led to that heart attack, Tommy?
I don't.
It was Kerry Von Erich versus Al Perez for the in a cage for the championship, and the Freebirds came down. Gary Hart was handcuffed to Fritz Von Erich. The Freebirds came back. They attacked Fritz Von Erich, and he seemed fine. And then as he was going back, he had the heart attack in the entranceway going back from the ring. And then for people forget this too, a lot of people think that like Kevin Von Erich the next week apologized and that's what it ended. That's not true. I mean, I remember in real time when that went on for weeks. They had reports from the hospital. That story went on for weeks before they finally said, you know, holy shit, we made a really bad mistake. And then they pulled the plug on it. And at number 1, and next week, Tommy, we're going to do the top 10 greatest booking decisions of all time. This would be on it if it didn't end so bad. This could have been one of the greatest stories in wrestling history if it didn't end so bad. So my number 1 will always be the main event between Sting and Hogan at Starrcade 97. Like, I don't think as a wrestling fan I ever bought into a story more than that one. and
Had
it
a
had
1-year build.
It had a 1-year build, and you couldn't have had a worse ending than the one that we saw at Starrcade 97. So that's my top 10 list. We welcome in the great, the legendary Sam Roberts. You can hear him on his own show, Jim and Sam, on SiriusXM, and of course the Not Sam Wrestling Podcast. Sam, thanks for joining us, and appreciate the feedback. And these lists are fun, and that's why you were the first person we thought of getting on the show today.
Well, I really appreciate you guys inviting me on, and I love that list. We will have some repeats, but I love doing these lists, and I had a lot of fun coming up with them. So for my list, I made it for me. It had to be stuff that I lived through and saw live. Like, cause you know what I mean? So like, cause I'm with you on the Fritz thing, but I saw the Fritz thing on tape later. Like I kind of knew it as a bad decision all my life. I didn't get to watch that play out. So that's why everything on my list is stuff that I actually saw, witnessed, felt.
And
Your
Sam,
list.
really quick before you get into your list, like think about that. We all know because they made a movie about it, you know, like the Iron Claw, like so much tragedy with that family. So let's fake the father of the family having a heart on Christmas. Oh. Let's do it on Christmas on top of that.
I mean, even they bring in the fake Von Erich in. Like you've built so the whole territory is built around the faith that you have in this real family. Let's throw it all in the garbage and just say, this is Lance Von Erich. These fans know this is a guy. I've watched this guy before. He's not a Von Erich.
I wonder if he even told his family.
Oh, probably
not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
That's a good call. You get live reactions right there.
What a choice.
Just bad. No. God. Anyway, Sam, go ahead with this list. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, here's my list. Top 10?
Yep.
Okay. Number 10, Stone Cold Steve Austin turns heel after WrestleMania 17.
Bad decision. And think about this, Sam. It's still the greatest WrestleMania of all time, even with that happening.
And here's why it made the list, is because it's the greatest WrestleMania of all time, arguably. It's my favorite Rock Stone Cold match. But everything you say about that match and that WrestleMania, you have to go except for. As long as you turn it off right before the end, everything's perfect. So that's number 10. Austin turns heel at WrestleMania 17. Number 9, WrestleMania 31, Triple H beats Sting.
It's on my list, Sam. You probably heard some of my rants. Mm-hmm. It makes absolutely no sense. The story that they told in the match makes absolutely no sense. There's no reason for Triple H to beat Sting. And then to just humiliate Sting further, let's have Triple H come back with his wife in the ring with wearing a suit, no selling what just happened in that match with Sting.
Yeah, and I mean, even the idea that, like, the NWO was coming out to help Sting. It's like, what are we doing? To go back to the Von Erichs, it'd be like the Freebirds came out to help them. Like, that would...
Sam, and you'll appreciate this because you're a man of the people. Like, I was in, and you weren't because you're probably working, but I was in the press box for WrestleMania 31. And all the frauds, as you know, they're all jumping up and down like, what fun. This is awesome. This is great. Terrible. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Wow. In what world would the NWO come down to help Sting? In what world?
I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting up front with Kevin Undergaro and Maria Menounos, humble brag, but I was having the same conversation as you. Kevin Undergaro was like, all the old guys are back. This is great. And I sat there explaining to him why this made no sense whatsoever and how dumb this whole... We've been waiting for this. They built it from Survivor Series all the way to WrestleMania.
The company that was established to the group to end the company is going to be with the guy who fought for the company the entire time.
Just add that to Starrcade 97 as a complete fucking debacle. Go ahead, Sam.
Terrible. Okay, number 8, This is from the era of WWE where they started going very soap opera heavy. And this was one of those storylines that I feel like I don't mind the soap opera stuff because I think fun stuff can happen, but it can go very bad. Number 8 is Hornswoggle is announced as Vince McMahon's son.
Awful.
I mean,
It's a
you
good
could have.
one.
I mean, you could have made somebody. You could have, and you know, you go, well, it was supposed to be this guy. It was supposed to be that. Whatever. Like now that we're there, and like, God bless Hornswoggle. Love the dude. Sure, it was great for him in the moment, but where are we going after this? What's the point?
And it went nowhere. And Sam, it's a good one because I completely forgot about that one, but that's a really good one, Sam.
Also, being there live, they kept it quiet to all the talent. Like this was going to be this great big reveal. Like, and they do stuff like that, or like, you know, keep the surprise. You know, I've been the guy. They put me on a bus when I came back for the Slammies to tag with Miz and Alberto Del Rio, and it was like, who is it? Who is it? Like, you're all sworn to secrecy, and then it was like, huh?
All right, number 7 is Summer of Punk 2011. The whole angle I thought was just a mess. I mean, Money in the Bank 2011 is one of the best full-on pay-per-views ever. That match, the John Cena CM Punk match, is one of my favorite things ever. And
crowd's fantastic in
crowd's
Chicago.
fantastic. Kiss goodbye. CM Punk disappears. Everything after CM Punk comes back is a mess. There's no logic to it. Nobody is going, oh, hopefully he'll feud with Kevin Nash. And God bless Kevin Nash, but Kevin Nash comes out of nowhere completely. We never get any clarification on the weird text message storyline. You're going, why would the whole thing just makes no sense.
And Sam, think about this, and it's a great pick, Sam. The whole thing was that he's taking the world title and he's leaving, and he's gone. He misses one Monday Night Raw, and then he's back on TV again. Like,
some of the things on this list, the reason they make the list is because they have the potential to be like special, arguably industry shifting. The way Punk's pipe bomb promo was industry shifting, and instead it's like nonsense. It's like, what are we doing? Okay, number 6, Hell in a Cell, Seth Rollins versus The Fiend, and the non-finish finish. And to me, that is like an all-encompassing kind of Fiend pick, where I feel like The Fiend, as a horror movie guy, is like one of my favorite characters ever. But there were just so many times where they clearly did not know how to handle it. They didn't know how to take it as far as it goes and then push the brakes back. It goes back to the thing. There was no, but what next? Right?
Yeah.
They put the Fiend in this position where he couldn't win, but he's in a match where you have to win. There's no way you can't win. And it goes back to the conversation of like, okay, like it's so cool to see the title on the Fiend, but how does that exist? Like how do you tell that story?